just an observation, but I'm not gonna.
Amherst County School Board to order. Before we have our moment of silence and our Pledge of Allegiance, Dr. Wells would like to have the floor.
Yes, ma'am. I'd just like to take a moment for us to reflect and remember and pay homage to those that at the Huguenot High School graduation in Richmond this past week, we had a shooting that involved 7 individuals, including the death of a high school student graduate as well as his stepfather. So in a moment of silence, I'd just like us to remember to keep those people in Richmond and the school system there in our thoughts. Also, since our last meeting, we've had 3 former staff members pass. So I'd like to say a couple words about them, and also please keep their families in your thoughts as well. First was Phyllis Jano. She was a longtime member of Amherst County Public Schools. She began teaching in 1972 at Central Elementary School. In 1980, she transferred to Amherst Elementary School, where she remained part of their family until she retired in 2005 with 33 years of service. Ms. Jana was a well-respected and loved member of our school community, and that was reflected in some accolades she received, such as Teacher of the Year and 3 Golden A Profound Educator Awards. We also lost Ms. Mary Margaret Caldwell. She spent her 40-year career of education with Amherst County Public Schools, beginning as a teacher and retired as a supervisor of literacy and federal programs. She was passionate about serving students and families and had a profound positive impact on many lives. She will be lovingly remembered and deeply missed. Mr. Mickey Crouch served as Amherst County head football coach and physical education teacher. He served as coach. He was here from 1992 to 2002. Coach Crouch led the Lancers to the first state football championship in 1995. He was loved and admired by many and respected for his work in developing our football program and the talent and character of the young men and students that he worked with. Coach Crouch has had a deep impact on so many of our students and laid a foundation for continued excellence in our athletic programs, and he'll be dearly missed. And I can say I worked with Coach Crouch as an assistant coach during that time frame, and he will be missed. So I just wanted to keep those individuals and their families and friends in your thoughts and prayers as we go into a moment of silence, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wells. Those are good things for us to remember during our moment of silence, and we have so many things that we are truly blessed for as well. So thank you. Now, if we could all stand, have a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Board, we need to approve tonight's agenda.
To approve tonight's agenda.
All right, I have a motion.
Second.
A second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have an agenda. Dr. Wells, I think you have some recognitions for us tonight.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So first we want to recognize Ms. Becky Booth. Ms. Booth is the recipient of the Region 2 Specialist of the Year for the JVG program, and I'll have Mr. Craig Maddox come forward and speak a little bit more about that.
Okay, Madam Chair, members of the board, we want to recognize Ms. Booth for her work with our Jobs for Virginia Graduates program. This past school year, Ms. Booth worked with 37 multi-year students from Amherst County High School and Amherst Education Center. Throughout the year, Ms. Booth worked with students in developing their life skills and employability skills through routine lessons. She also got our students to participate in field trips to the JVG Leadership Day and Business Networking at the Chesterfield County Technical Center, field trip to Delta Star, Southern Air, Moore's Electric, Virginia Technical Institute, BWXT, City of Lynchburg Wastewater Treatment Facility, Glad Manufacturing, and Hermely Clocks. Also, the students heard guest speakers from Hurt and Profit, James River Equipment, that was through in-person meetings, and they learned about other various employers through videos provided by Delta Star, Commercial Steel Erection, Greif, ITG, and English Construction. So, because of her dedication to the JVG program and to all of our students, she received the Region 2 JVG Outstanding Specialist Award for 2023.
And thank you all for giving me the opportunity to work with these students. Very rewarding.
Thank you. Do you want to get a picture?
Little left. Yeah, yeah.
Just like having Joey
All
there.
right, Mr. Rossi, if you can go, yep, there we go, perfect, thank you. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Let me just take a couple. Oh, hold on. 1, 2, 3.
We'd also tonight like to recognize our yearbook staff, and I'm going to ask Ms. Wanda Burley to come forward with some comments there. And I believe y'all received another special recognition for last year's yearbook. Do you mind speaking that way up here? So you can probably say it better than I can.
Thank you, Dr. Wells and members of the board. I think what Dr. Wells is referring to, we just recently received notification that last year's yearbook is being included in what they call portfolio. It is produced by our publishing company, Herff Jones Publishing, and they select schools throughout the country. They review their books and then pull samples from their books to create a book of samples that they share with schools all across the nation. So we haven't seen it. We've just been notified that we're going to be in the portfolio. So we're excited, waiting to find out just what they have selected from our students' works to be showcased. So it's a big accomplishment for last year's group that did that. So we're looking forward to it. Tonight, I have a couple of students with me who served as co-editors on the book this year, Ashton Bryant and Dylan Coles. And they have a little presentation that they want to make. But before they do that, I want you to know that the group of students we had this year, we had 11 students who worked on staff. And I'm not sure if any of you have ever worked on a yearbook before? Couple? Okay. You know how much time goes into it. There's a lot of planning before you actually create the book. So you're thinking about, what stories am I going to put in there? What pictures do we need to take? Who do we need to interview? So all of those hours. But in addition, this year we did the book using an online publishing program. And at the end of the year, I ran a report just to, out of curiosity, how many hours did we put into creating this book? And this was just the online part where they were doing their graphic design, where they were actually adding things to the pages. And altogether, at the end of the year, there were 3,632 hours and 21 minutes that they had spent, everybody working together online. That doesn't include the time that they're going to events and covering it, taking the pictures and writing the stories. So I think when you stop and think about that, in school, actually less than 180 days that they're sitting in class, they're working in class, but think about the hours that these young people have put in, dedication that they give to working beyond the class time, after school and at home, that they're working on this. So very excited about their product, and now I'm going to let Ashton and Dylan, they have a little presentation that they would like to make. Thank you.
Dr. Wells and members of the school board, good evening. My name is Ashton Bryant. I'm a co-editor on the 2023 Amethyst Yearbook staff for Amherst County High School. Thank you for having us today. It has been an honor serving on the Amethyst staff this year. In the early process of the development of the yearbook, the 11 staff members were trying to decide on a theme for this year's publication. We kept going back and referring to Show Up Amherst and Dr. Wells's hashtag Show Up Amherst as a potential theme idea. We invited Dr. Wells to speak with us one day earlier this school year to explain and talk to our staff about Show Up Amherst and the meaning behind behind it. In our discussion with him, we looked at ways our student as well as the community show up each day, not just being present, but in what we do, being engaged, competing, going beyond, making an impact, and supporting each other. Our students showed up in many ways this year, going beyond in our everyday lives as students, engaging in our academics, and involvement in extracurricular activities. Our students competed in sports, and overall, they showed up and made an impact in our community and school by making not just students, but strong citizens. Through the support from our school personnel, as well as the various businesses and organizations throughout the area, ACHS students showed up and were engaged in this school year. Now I'm going to hand over the floor to one of my co-editors, Dylan Coles. Thank you.
Hello. Sorry. We have learned as a staff and as a school that showing up means much more than coming to school every day. Since the pandemic, communities and schools across America have become less connected. But we found showing up and bringing the community into the school and becoming more involved can motivate and bring us back stronger and even better than before. We had people to show up for. We had reasons to show up and ways to show up. We showed up for our classes, for special events, Friday night football games, concerts, and plays. And we showed up for one another. Show up is what we saw in our school and community, and that's why we represented it in such a powerful way in our book this year. This is why we come to school. This is why we are engaged in our community. This is why we keep pushing to graduation and beyond each day. This is why we show up. Now, on behalf of the 2023 Amethyst staff, we would like to share a copy of our yearbook with you so you can see the many ways our students and our school community showed up this year. We hope you enjoy reading it as much as we enjoyed publishing the 67th volume of our high school yearbook.
At the baseball game. Oh, it feels nice. Everybody's smiling. I know it. Yeah, thank you.
One, two, three. Thank you.
Thank you for the book.
Finally, we want to recognize some of our band students tonight. So I'm going to have Mr. Tomlin and Mr. Campbell come forward and make some recognitions regarding some of the accomplishments of our band students this year.
Thank you, Dr. Wells, members of the board. I'm Aaron Tomlin. I'm the band director at Mont Ellison Middle School. We've had a couple of accomplishments this year down at Mont Ellison. The 7th and 8th grade advanced band and the jazz band earned excellent ratings at our assessments this year. And just before the end of the school year, the advanced band and jazz band went on to a competition at Kings Dominion where they both earned superior ratings. Tonight, I'm going to recognize a few of my students who passed auditions to make the VBODA District 13 All-District Honor Band. Ooh, that's a mouthful. The first is Brooke Tasker, made it on flute. Carter Bryant on clarinet. Ania Thompson on trombone. Colton Neese on tuba. Caleb Campbell on baritone. And finally, I have a student who was nominated earlier in the year to audition for the Carnegie Hall Honors Performance Series, and she went through with the audition and passed, and so this summer she will be playing trumpet at Carnegie Hall as part of an honor band, and that is Lorelei Ashton.
We'll get them all, we'll do this at school, or do them all together?
Put everybody together if we could.
Well, we'll do both.
That's a good one.
Band rocks.
One,
Ask me how I know.
three.
Instrument I used to play. Play trumpet.
All right, and so for Amherst Middle School, we had one student go to represent us. That was Hunter Doss on trumpet.
There we go.
Yeah, just one more.
I was waiting for more.
One, two,
And like Manelson, with a lot of their accolades that they had, the high school, we took them to the jazz assessment, and they got a mixture between superior and excellent. Superior is the top score you can possibly get. Excellent is the next highest, and we got a mixture of those with the jazz band. And the concert band, we took them to the concert band assessment, where they look at kind of how you're doing on the SOLs. And from all 4 judges, we got superior ratings from all of them. So they did an awesome job, just like Manelson. The students I had make the bands for the high school. They kind of have 2 sort of like the sports teams, the first team and the second team. And so the concert band is kind of like that second team. And we had Melanie Bennett on piccolo. We had Allie Lobb on oboe. Unable to be with us tonight is Lyra Glazer on clarinet and Jose Covington on trumpet. In this group, we also had Samaya Rose on trumpet. And we had Kaylee Bennett on bari sax. And the symphonic band for the high school, we had Jack Pitts on horn. He's unable to be with us tonight. We had Ryan Flood on clarinet. And we had Trent Brooks on alto sax. Now, so after audition for the all-district band, the ones at the very top are allowed to audition for the all-Virginia band, and we actually had 2 students make that, and that was Ryan Flood and Trent Brooks made the all-Virginia band.
one, two, three. All right, Dr. Wells, we're going to try and get everybody in.
Everybody go. We can do
can do some in the front.
So if you're less tall, be in the front.
We need to squeeze in a little bit more. A little bit more. We got to get two more to come into the front.
More step forward.
Abby should be in the front row because she's tiny too.
Yep, and then scoot down. Keep on going. Okay, we got it. 1, 2, 3. Congratulations.
We're gonna have to get a wider angle lens.
Have to step back against the windows to try to get everybody in.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to recognize these students for all their accomplishments this year, so thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wells. That's the best part of this job is getting to see the students and their successes. And I just want to say, as y'all are exiting, just thank you so much because there's a lot of hard work behind that recognition. So thank you. Lots of hours and dedication. It's now time for public comments, and we do not have anyone who has signed up tonight, but of course, if there's anyone who's interested in speaking to the board, we're happy to have you do so. Do I see any takers? Okay, seeing none, we will close public comments. We're down to 4.01 to discuss and consider approval of the school board meeting dates. Dr. Wells?
So we went ahead and laid out dates for the year, for the upcoming calendar year, or working year for us. So just wanted to know just make sure those dates are okay with you. We kind of looked at the holidays and tried to work around those events and things of that nature. So just try to lay the board meetings out. We again these are all scheduled for the second Tuesday. We do know that if need be, we can schedule a second meeting at for the fourth Thursday of the month, but we left those as open, but if we need it, we also realize that can happen, and then we can also schedule meetings during budget season if necessary. But we wanted to go ahead and get the primary first meeting on the books and just see if y'all make sure everybody's okay with those dates.
Okay. Board, is there anyone that has any comments or questions or conflicts that you know of at this point? Do we need a motion?
Yeah.
Okay, we need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the school calendar as presented.
I have a motion. I need a second.
Second?
Have a second. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none. All in favor of approving the recommended school board meeting dates?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
now we're down to our consent agenda. Board, I need a motion to approve consent agenda.
Madam Chairperson, I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I have a motion to approve our consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second?
Okay, any discussion?
Aye.
Okay, seeing no discussion, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Consent agenda passes.
All right.
Now we're down to information, administrative items.
If I may, ma'am, can I
Yes.
introduce, on the consent agenda, we had Mr. Ron Profit on there, and since we have approved him on the consent agenda, I think at this time I'd like to introduce him to you and his family. A quick bio on Mr. Profit. He attended Emory and Henry College, where he earned his bachelor's degree in English. He went on to study at Virginia Tech, earned a master's degree in educational leadership and policy studies. He is currently enrolled in a doctoral program at the University of Lynchburg. Mr. Profit started his educational career in 1998 as a high school English teacher at Bassett High School. He stayed there until he moved into administration in 2006 as an assistant principal at Fieldale Collinsville Middle School. From there, he was the assistant principal at Bassett High School, associate principal at Heritage High School, principal at Lincoln Middle School, and principal at Alta Vista Combined Middle High School. We are thrilled that he has chosen to dedicate his 25 years of education and leadership experience to the students and families of Amherst County Public Schools as the new principal of Central Elementary School. So this time I introduce Mr. Profit.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Members of the board, Dr. Wells, thank you, Dr. Wells. Thank you, members of the board, for receiving me. Thanks to everyone here. It's a pleasure to come before you tonight. I'm excited to be coming on board with Amherst County Public Schools at Central Elementary School and continuing the great work that's already there and making sure we move that forward. As Dr. Wells said, I have my family here with me, my wife, Kelly, my two daughters, Kara and Abby, my son, Brett, and his wife, Amanda, and our grandchild are in Chesapeake, so obviously they couldn't be here. But I'm really thrilled and excited to be coming on board and looking forward to working with you all and getting to know the community in the area and the school and continuing to move forward with great success. So anyway, just want to say hello and thank you so much, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Profit.
Oh, are we doing pictures again?
One, two, three. Perfect.
To the family, stay as long as you like, but I know there's probably better things you can do. Welcome aboard. Welcome down. So next we have item 6, administrative. Dr. Hoden will speak to you about administrative items. Dr. Hoden.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board. Yes, ma'am. Mr. Rokes and I have been working on the appeal for the construction grant. We have submitted that, and we've also been working with Jamerson Lewis to reduce the cost to kind of meet in the middle. I'm going to let Dr. Wells talk about, we were able to receive our actual report where we received 59 points on that, and we needed 65 to get the grant. But I'm going to let Dr. Wells speak to that real quick.
So in the application, there were two things that were out that the state looked at regarding that things we put in. They just pulled from data. And one was our composite index, which is a 0.3048. If we'd have been 48 hundredths of a point lower, we would have gotten more points, received more points there. The other was the debt service for the county, which is a 0.39. Anything below a 3 received 0 points. So there, I'm speaking this way, that the fact that as a board, you have done things to keep our schools and improve our schools over time and keep us from having buildings that are falling down, and the work we have done as a county to improve our schools, we're getting penalized for that in this grant. The fact that the county is trying to be fiscally responsible and not have a huge debt service is penalizing us for this grant. And I will tell that to everyone who wants to listen, and I'll say that to the state. I feel that we're being penalized because we're trying to do the right thing. We have tried to do the right thing in the past with putting new roofs on buildings, upgrading air conditioning systems, and working with the county to fund that. And I feel that because we have done that and taken those steps as a school system and as a county, that therefore we're penalized for other school divisions who may not have had that foresight and that drive to have their schools where they need to be, are receiving this grant and we're not. So I will say that to the Board of Supervisors and let them know the why behind that. I'm going to meet with Mr. Bryant next week and set a date that I can come to the Board of Supervisors and discuss that with them. But I really feel we're being, again, penalized because we have tried to do the right thing in the past and keep our schools updated. And when we need the funds to fix an issue, because we've done that, we're not eligible to receive them. So we're going to appeal their decision and see where that goes. I've also been in contact with the county administration on ways we can find alternative ways to fund, and we've had some very positive conversations regarding that. And so I feel we're still in a positive direction, but it's going to take us going with the Board of Supervisors and getting creative to find additional funding to offset the money that we feel we should be getting from the state on this. So I just want you to know where that stands. We still feel and believe that we should be eligible to receive this funding, but because we have tried to do the right thing in the past, we're being penalized for it with this grant and how the grant was designed. So that's where we are, and we'll continue to fight, but we're also in good conversations with the county right now. And I will go, I meet with Mr. Bryant. I will come to you in July. I'm not sure if I'll need a resolution from the board or not to go in front of the Board of Supervisors to request additional funding. But I'll see where the county is on that, and then I would come to you in July regarding that. But we found some ways through their debt service that we think if the Board of Supervisors agrees, that things can work out. But again, the Board of Supervisors would have to agree to additional funding right now, unless we make significant cuts to the plan. We're trying to cut down, but to get it down to the funds we have, we would have to make some substantial cuts to what we want to do at the high school. So again, we want to work with the county. It is something for our community. It's not just for the school. It's not just for the students, but it's for our community. So again, as we've said all along, this is a community project. So I'm hoping we can come to an agreement with the county and we can find a way to move this forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wells.
Do y'all have any questions regarding the grant and the process or any of that? I'd be glad to try to answer.
Madam Chair, would it help reaching out to our delegates and our current senator representation?
So I've already reached out to Senator Peake and Delegate Walker, and we have reached out to Ms. Campbell, thank you, about this and given them the information that we have. So if you as board members would like to do that, that is fine. You can't speak as a board individually, but if you're aware and you have contact with them, I would not be opposed. But we're trying to work it through every means possible to see what we can get, see if we can figure something out. Because it doesn't feel right that we're being penalized for trying to do the right thing in the past. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Board, anyone else have any questions?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Mr. Rossi?
The grant that we're talking about, what was the total number on that grant?
We were eligible for between $5 and $6 million. We could have been eligible for more if our composite index was 0.48 of a point lower than what it is right now. But due to that, we were at 0.3048. We are eligible for 20% of the total cost of the project, which would have been around $5 to $6 million.
Okay. And I know there were some additional funds that were left over from last year, or were we moving? Was there?
For us, we currently sit at, and Ms. Klein, you can correct me, but from talking with the county, we've already spent some money on the planning phases. We currently sit at around $22.5 or $23 million that we have for the project.
Right.
And so even though the project came over, we were at a point where we were going to be pretty close. But
Correct.
Without getting the grant, it impacts our abilities. That's why I had to go have some conversations with the county.
Okay. All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Saunders?
So how confident do you feel in the appeal process?
The appeal, I don't have much faith in the appeal process. We're going to do it just to see what they tell us. That's why we're trying to work on Plan B and C and D with the county on what they can do to help continue to move the project forward. There will be a secondary application process in the fall that we can still apply again. But if they sit it on the same criteria, the county does not carry much debt service, therefore we get 0 points for that. If they didn't take debt service into account, then we have been at above 65 points, we would have been eligible for it. But because the county doesn't carry a lot of debt service, then it penalized us for that.
It was a scale 1 to 10, and the county's at 0.39 on their debt service. So that's a good thing, but.
It's a good thing for the taxpayers of Amherst County, but it's not a good thing for us trying to get this grant.
Anyone else?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Justice?
For our viewers, can you explain again what the composite index is made of?
It's
or
basically,
determined?
it rates the county's ability to pay. So you get rated on that to fund the schools. So basically right now, 30%, we're about 30% of our funds should come from the county, 7% of our funding should come from the state, because our county does not have the ability through its tax base, whatever, and so forth, to pay higher. So that's how they sit that. In some jurisdictions, it may be a 60 or a 70, where the county would pay 60 to 70% of the budget, and the state would pay 20 to 35%. So it's all based on the school divisions or the county's ability to raise income and raise revenue and so forth.
And did I understand you to say that we were just a fraction off to qualify for points there, or?
Where they sit the line was 0.3, and we were 0.3048.
All right, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Close, but yet so far.
Yes.
All right, any other questions? Okay, thank you,
Okay.
Dr. Wells.
Thank you. Dr. Hogan?
6.02, yes, ma'am. Madam Vice Chair, members of the board, you have in front of you the May VSBA policy changes for first review.
Okay, board, I know that there's quite a lot on here. This is, again, just the first review. Do you remember the one that we discussed that we need to?
BDDL.
BDDL.
It's an option, but it's a brand-new policy, and it discusses committees, school board committees, and it's a new policy on school board committees. And I just, in my notes to you, I just recommended that you look at that, because it sets how you can do the parameters you'd have to set if you do committees, and if you want to do a virtual meeting versus an in-person meeting and so forth. So it's only about 2.5 pages, but it's a lot in there. So I just ask that you, when you look through those, just look at it. We don't have to approve it. It's an optional policy. You don't have to approve any of them, but obviously this is an optional policy, so it's not, but it is something there for you to be aware of.
So I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that policy so you could give it a little extra look and consideration. It is new, whether or not we want that policy or none, or whether we want some form of that. And there are other policies in here that have been updated just because if you approve BDDL, then they would attach that as a new reference. So you may be aware of some of those. If we don't vote for BDDL, you wouldn't have to change those other policies. Okay, any questions that you might have for Dr. Wells on the policies that you've been reviewing so far? Ms. Justice?
Thank you. Dr. Wells, from your perspective, as far as BDDL, we don't really have many committees right now, but we have, there have been districts that have formed committees for libraries, for curriculum, for policy, et cetera. From your perspective, how do you feel like this policy would help us as a district? Do you feel like it's?
So the policy would require, if we have meetings in that realm, that they be open to the public, and there may be times you're working on things that, may not need to have a large input. So look at some of those things where you may need to delineate open content versus closed content and what you're discussing. So, but it would also just again require, if we go with virtual, have them access to that. You can only do 2 virtual meetings and so forth. So it ties into some of that. I don't know if it would negatively impact us, but I'm not sure if we need it either.
I wondered. Thank you.
Any other questions on policy before we move on? Okay, thank you, Dr. Hoden.
6.03, at the last month's meeting, there were some questions on the cost of meals and the increased cost to produce meals, and there was a concern about the student cost raising. However, since then, we found out we are on CEP, which means all the children eat free, which is a great thing. So that was kind of a moot point. However, Ms. Klein is here if you have any other questions for her about any of that. She did tell me this evening that the adult meal price will rise up. It'll be about $4.35, which if you've been to McDonald's, that's still pretty cheap.
Questions for Mrs. Klein? Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Justice, you have,
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
did. Yes, ma'am. No, that's okay. Ms. Klein, my understanding is that our food service budget is separate. The funds that we get is completely separate, and that we have an excess, I guess? Is that correct?
That's correct.
So, why do we need to raise when we have an excess?
We're not. That's why all the students are eating free, but if you want to.
Okay.
Sorry, we won't be raising any meal prices. For the past 3 years, all kids in Amherst County gotten free breakfast and free lunch. The only thing that will change for next year will be the adult meal prices.
What was our percentage of free meals previous to COVID? I believe we qualified for free meals during COVID, is that correct, for everyone?
Yes, there were pandemic waivers through COVID that made everybody free. And then this past school year, we were completely division-wide community eligibility. So every school in the district qualifies for free meals. And that will continue into next year as well.
All right, thank you.
Question, sort of piggybacking, I know that we're not raising prices for the students because they're receiving free lunches. Can you explain why we are raising prices for the adult meals when we have a excess?
That is set by USDA. So we have no control over that. They basically set the prices.
Thank you.
and the excess funds, there's a plan in place to spend down those excess funds, but, and I don't know if you want to speak to that.
We're not being penalized because we have the funds. We just have to have the plan in place that's approved by the state and how we're going to spend it. So it's not a bad thing we have it. It's just we have to have the plan in place of how we're going to use the funds.
Do we have any time limit?
No, we'll probably have to do a plan like this for next year too. We just have to have the plan approved, like we'll be replacing equipment. We're going to, of course, increase salaries for next year. Our increased food costs will be part of that plan. So it'll be ongoing, so we really don't have a time limit as long as the plan is placed and it's approved.
Madam Chair,
Pressy?
I understand that being up here on the board, we're getting some input from families within a district. And when we're getting grants, usually, do we have to purchase our food through certain approved vendors? Is that how that works? And if somebody's not an approved vendor, how do they become one? I'm wondering about locally sourcing fresh fruits and vegetables, if that's something the district could look into and maybe have even more cost cuts without raising prices for anybody. But I mean,
Yes,
obviously we're in a good light right now, but
Yes.
prices are going to continue to rise, and ultimately, I know someone's going to have to come up with money somewhere.
Yes, we do have, because we receive mostly federal dollars, we have to go out to bid for who has our contracts. So like our big grocery contract is with the Richmond Restaurant Service. So they have our main groceries. But yes, we have done a pilot program of 4P Foods, and they have a distributor in Charlottesville. So they source out locally Virginia-grown, basically, foods, and we have used them this year, and we are continuing with them even after our pilot program's over. So some of our excess dollars are going to local Virginia produce. This summer, we've been in contact with some of the local farmers in Amherst. I need to do a little more legwork to go out and do some farm visits so we can make sure their agricultural processes are good. But we are starting to partner with them as well, too.
Okay, great. So is there an avenue that a local farmer can do to get recognized or get on the list to be available?
They can contact me. I've talked with our local health inspector, so he is on board. And as long as I can set up the farm visit and we can make sure their agricultural practices are in line with what we have to use for the state, then we just have to set up how to get their produce and how to pay them.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Hoden.
Yes, ma'am. 6.04, you have in front of you the student suspension list for May.
Are there any questions for Dr. Hoden about suspensions? Okay. Seeing
Thank
none,
you.
thank you, Dr. Hoden.
Thank you.
Now we're down to 7.01, finance.
Finance, so yes, ma'am. Ms. Lakonich will discuss finance with you at this point.
Good evening, Madam Vice Chair, members of the board. So tonight we are reviewing the May financial reports. So you have before you your standard reports. We are in our last month. We are working on closing out that fiscal year that's ending June 30th. We'll be working, though, into July and August as we clean up outstanding invoices and make sure we're recognizing all of our revenue. We did receive this afternoon the final, it was late this afternoon, the state's final calc tool for the FY23 school year. So we're going to be updating our work papers and just getting the most up-to-date projections that we will have for the division. The appropriation and the budget transfer that you all have approved this evening will clear up those negative balances that are showing in the object code summary on page 5. And that was clearing up the transportation and child nutrition overages. As mentioned in previous meetings, we are still monitoring our sales tax very, very closely. We still have 3 months of revenue to receive and recognize in this fiscal year. So even the July and August will impact our current year. We are continuing to see a decline. May was lower than it was last time, same time last year. If that trend does continue, our projections are we're not going to make what the state's sales tax a number is in the calc tool. So we have taken precautions to minimize our spending until we have those because it's uncertain, and the state has advised that they won't make us whole. It is not a guaranteed revenue source. So we are working on that. We will have our June numbers next month. We will update our projections, and we will just keep the board up to date on that. So again, thank you for the appropriation and the budget transfer so we can clean those up for year end, and we will just continue to monitor. Do you have any questions?
Questions for Mrs. Lakonich? Ms. Justice?
Ms. Lakonich, thank you so much for your hard work. I really appreciate it. The difference between a year ago, our revenue from sales tax, in this year's, is it like in the tens of thousands, the hundreds of thousands?
So if we take what we've received, and I'm comparing it to the budget, what the budgeted number is. So if we had, when we started out the year with our original sales tax projection from the DOE, and then we take what we've received to date, and then for the next 3 months, if I put in the placeholder of what we had last year for those 3 months, we actually would have had an excess. But because when going through, you go through the calc tool changes, they upped the amount of sales tax that we were projected to receive, and then the basic aid went down. The problem is the sales tax isn't guaranteed. With that new updated number that's higher, if we continued in June, July, and August comes in as it was last year, we're looking at about $177,000 decrease. And so we're just going to monitor it. I mean, that's assuming that it's level, but May wasn't level. So we're just, we don't want to cause an alarm, but it is our job to monitor it and to make adjustments from within. And I hope that we will still have, significant fund balance, and this has been for nothing, but to be fiscally responsible, we've had those conversations, and we're just looking at what is essential to spend right now.
Another question. Since the state is forecasting a higher level of income, and that is affecting how much they're giving us, is that correct? Or did I misunderstand it?
So they'll provide a projection, and they do base it off of Weldon Cooper. It's their projection.
So it's just a tool. It doesn't affect how much they give us or anything?
Well, I mean, they will give us that projection, but it's never been a guaranteed source because it's based off of your sales. And if we had maintained that level from the approved budget when we had that calc tool, when we started the year, we would have been okay. But it was increased, and those increased funds, I don't see them coming in if the trend continues. And it could change it. I'm praying that it was just a little blip, and we can go back to normal. But right now, we just want to keep monitoring it.
So if I'm understanding correctly, this tool is to help you project and make your budgeting, but it wasn't exactly accurate, but you guys foresaw that and have been making changes so that difference is not as impactful.
Correct. So we know what the calc tool says, when we as they bring out updated ones, we will adjust based off the most recent. And the last two recent ones, they did have higher projections, but we don't depend on that. We keep a historical month by month, and we compare to see, does it look like it's going to come in? And just right now with the last few months, it does look like we're going to be short. But we aren't just telling you that today. We've had those discussions. We've made those adjustments. We just keep monitoring it.
Thank you for your hard work. I really appreciate how much effort you're putting into that and being proactive. Thank you.
And I want to say, Ms. Lakonich, I want to thank you. Just board, I did sit down with her this evening before we met. We went over a lot of that. She has her finger on a lot of details. Can pull it up quickly if you want to sit down with her and discuss it. But she is being very cautious, and we appreciate that very much. I know you've been telling us about this since about April, and you've got your eye on it, and so I just want to say thank you for that. Appreciate it. We're hoping for better days, but
me too.
maybe you can sleep better. But I do feel like, board, that she understands what's happening, and she's monitoring it and keeping all of us informed. So we just hope that some people in Virginia go and spend more money.
Buy more stuff here in Amherst County, right? Yeah. Thank
Well,
you.
actually, I learned something from you today, is that we get sales tax from the state,
Yeah, it's
not
ba-
from
ours
Amherst
is
County
based-
sales tax.
Correct. I had checked with the county to see if they were seeing
Yeah.
the same on their end, and they advised me that theirs is just based off of the county, where we are looking at the whole state, so.
So everybody come to Virginia on vacation this year.
That's right.
Bring your family home this year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lakonich.
So next we have item 8, instruction. Dr. Norman is out of town tonight, so Mr. Neighbors will be speaking on the instructional part. Mr. Neighbors.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'll do my best to be a representative for Dr. Norman this evening. A few updates for you. Wanted to give you a sense of where we are with our kindergarten registration. We had a very successful event April 26th and 27th. We were able to screen over 200 students coming into kindergarten next year in Amherst County, so busy days for our staff working with those families, but it was great to see the turnout for that. In addition to our current students served in pre-K, we've had 109 new registrations to date, so very, very strong numbers at this point in the year. In particular, at Madison Heights and Amelon, very, very good turnout, very strong numbers across the board. And Temperance, of note, is back up to where we expect them to be year in, year out. So great turnout thus far. Staff's been doing a great job of working with families, getting the word out, getting them in for those appointments. And we expect even higher numbers as we get into the summer and more families coming in. It is important to note, and as a public service announcement, and for everyone to be encouraging families, there are actually 3 steps to the process. There's an initial giving of information that we consider to be registration, so those first things that are filled out online or at school, a screening process that occurs, and then actual enrollment documentation that has to be completed for actual official completion of enrollment. We do still have some families that have completed step 1 and 2, but not 3. We have staff that have been reaching out to them consistently, providing opportunity for them to come in and get assistance with that. It's not unusual at this point in the year, but we just wanted to make sure that we had put that out there as a public service announcement. Come in, let us help you. Want to get those enrollments finished and have everybody ready for the fall. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about that. If I was remiss earlier, Ms. Robin Wheeler and her team are responsible for all of that and have been doing a phenomenal job thus far.
Board?
Yes.
Justice?
Yes.
Please.
Mr. Neighbors, in comparison to last year, how are we sitting about this point?
Yeah, according to Ms. Wheeler, I did actually ask her that question. I don't have the number in front of me, but we're actually a little bit stronger with turnout at this point. We always have a little bit of a late rush towards the beginning of the school year, but this puts us in a much better position than we were last year. Several of our programs were kind of surprisingly low from a number standpoint at this phase in the game, but very, very encouraged by our turnout thus far.
That's great. Thank you.
All right, well, moving right along, Dr. McGinnis gave me an update on our summer programming. We wanted to share that with you all this evening. For our Power Scholar Summer Academy, so looking specifically at rising 3rd, 4th, and 5th, we have 87 students currently registered for that program and set to begin here in the coming weeks. We are adding more students, so again, working on getting the word out and trying to get a few more in. We only have 1 site this year. We did hone in on that 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade based on our data where we were seeing that need for additional instruction and ensuring we're providing that opportunity to those groups. 87 at this point in the year, kind of looking at that combined site. They want a little bit more. They're hoping for a few more to come in. They were hoping for a 1-to-15 ratio. They're a little bit below that now, one staff member to 15 students, but they're hopeful they can get there by the start of the program. In addition to that, we have our Bridge Math program. So again, that's for our students who are rising 6th graders. They're moving past that 6th grade math into 7th grade math. They've been recommended by their teachers to do so. And right now we have 45 students registered for that program, which is a good, strong number for them this summer. In addition, we have programming at our middle schools and high school. As of today, we have 145 students registered to participate in courses at the high school for the summer, so that's a great number for us to have. That does include a lot of students taking economics and personal finance, which they do free of charge over the summer, kind of gets them through that particular requirement and allows them to engage in some other courses for next year. We do have some other students that are taking new courses or repeating courses as may be needed, but the bulk of that number is that economics and personal finance course. We also have 39 students at Amherst Middle School and 38 students at Manellison Middle School participating in their programming over the summer, which really is looking at reading and math enrichment, getting them into that content, spiraling of concepts, ensuring they're getting that support and we don't see any loss over the summer. All right. Again, be happy to take any questions y'all might have on those.
I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
You said that the Power Scholars in the summer program was targeted for rising 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And what's the rationale? Why are we not targeting Tier 2, Tier 3 for the current first graders or kindergarten students?
Absolutely. So we do have some other programming available. As on that particular memo, we are offering virtually some access to content where we're really looking at some of that tiered intervention for reading and math specifically, so giving access to that. The decision on 3rd, 4th, and 5th for the in-person Power Scholars Academy came down to a couple of different factors, but really as we were looking at that data, that's where we needed to engage the most with those students that were trying to get some recovery, get them back to where we need them to be over the summer. But a lot of it did come down to, unfortunately, resources and budget and being able to get the staff in to work with that collective. In the past, we've had huge groups that have come in on 2 sites with Power Scholars, and we've been able to support that. From a grant standpoint, the Y has been a great partner with that. There were some limitations with that this year that we just weren't able to overcome to that, so we really had to focus on that 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade group.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Board, do you have any other questions?
I'm,
Ms. Ligon?
yeah, no, I'm just looking at the numbers. You're right, it's a little bit of a decrease, but attributed to what now? Is it just turnout or is it budget?
Honestly, this has taken us back to where we were pre-COVID. And I was looking at that today. It's kind of when I was back before COVID, looking at those summer programs, it's a little more common to what we had then. Fortunately, we did have inflated numbers during COVID and just after, and we really needed to be serving that number of students. But this is really kind of getting us back to our baseline where we were before that. Yeah.
What's the hours again? I see the buses, but what's the
We will get that to y'all. I'm going to completely butcher the schedule, and I don't want to do that,
Yeah, don't
mess
do that. Go
somebody
ahead.
up.
Go ahead.
But we'll get that to you.
All right.
Yep. Yes, ma'am. All right. I'm going to keep on rolling on. I have one more update for y'all, and then a couple other guests that are going to come speak. A quick update on our pre-K Smart Start programs applications. We've received 142 applications to date. We currently have 85 of those students that have been found eligible, and another 27 that we're waiting on income verification. So there's certain thresholds that we need to meet with state regulations for the Virginia Preschool Initiative. Hopeful that most of those are going to come in. That's going to get us pretty much all the way to our 122 seats that we have available for next year. So great spot for us to be in at this phase of the year. We do have 11 students, or families, I should say, that we've referred to Head Start. So they didn't meet qualifications under VPI, but we were able to work with our community partner to get them access there. And in addition to those 122 slots, once we're able to fill those, we have another 8 slots that we're able to fill through a mixed delivery where we actually work with some of our private preschool providers in the area. And more of those are getting registered, working with the state regulations along those lines. So we're hopeful that number will continue to expand as we go forward. But very excited about where we are at this point in the year. Ms. Albert and her team done a great job of getting the word out and getting students in so that we can provide that early intervention. And again, be happy to answer any questions the board might have.
Don't see any. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to turn the mic over to my table mate, Mr. Maddox, and give you some good news.
All right, Madam Vice Chair, members of the board, had a Susan memo come out, and it was April 21st on a new competitive CTE grant for the Skills Trades program. So we had the information, we decided to apply for the grant. It was a quick turnaround. We had to have the application done by May the 15th. So I want to thank Christy Lambert and also Mr. Shannon Presnell for helping work on the grant and get it submitted by the 15th. But anyway, we concentrated on the renovation of the welding lab at the high school. So we actually put all of the information about the number in the workforce number of welders that the Region 2000 is down, which I want to say it's probably 50 or 60. And if we increase, we do the renovation at the high school, we increase our stations by 5, where we can have a maximum of 20 students, that's going to give our students more opportunities in our welding program. So Dr. Wells was notified, I believe it was May 30th, that we did receive one of the 24 grants for $125,000. So I think that'll go a long way in putting the new equipment, any things we need, especially some new stick and TIG welders in our welding lab. So, good news.
Wonderful news.
I just had one quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have enough room in the current space for 5 more spots, or do we have to reconfigure the room?
No, ma'am. In the current space, we only have 15 bays. So, you know, if the renovation, if we do not get that extra space, we would have to use that for other equipment, which we can always do up-to-date equipment, welding machines and that. But, yeah, we do not have the space right now to add any more bays in the welding lab.
Okay, I didn't know if you were gonna reconfigure and like stuff them in there, or what was gonna happen.
I think we've reconfigured it, and we're as tight as we can get right now.
But our goal is to use this, since we haven't received the grant, we can use this to offset some of the cost for equipment when we do the renovation.
Right.
If things go as planned, and it can help offset some of those costs for equipment during the project.
All right, me again, 8.02. I'm going to ask Ms. Wanda Smith, Ms. Natalia Cecil to come on up. We have a presentation for you this evening about VVAS, new system from the state.
Good evening, everyone. We're here to do a brief summary about VVAS. It's the acronym. It stands for Virginia's Visualization and Analytics Solution. It is not a new program. When you think of the broader scope outside of Virginia, it does exist in North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Ohio, but it is news to us. It is a web-based tool that allows you to house historical measures of students' performance over time. Through this program, you're able to get growth reports where you can see how students are responding to instruction and growing over time individually, as well as how school performance is growing. You can go back. Yeah, right there. It'll also give us diagnostic reports where we can see how specific groups and clusters of students are responding to the instruction that we're giving. And it also gives us projection reports where you can see how close students, you can attempt to see how close students might perform at certain milestones. And then how can we respond and make sure that we're implementing instructions to get them to that milestone. It's a good tool for now, but you also have to remember we have to use this in tandem with other data sources that we have, not in isolation. And it is kind of new to us, so I'm going to allow Ms. Cecil to go in detail about the benefits of this tool and also the student summary reports.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. So VVAS is a tool that provides caregivers with student assessment summaries, and that's going to help support the creation of learning targets for students. So a caregiver understanding their students' historical performance can help them to identify and advocate for those additional supports or opportunities for acceleration or enrichment. It will also give caregivers an awareness of how their students compare to other students across the state, as the graph on the student summary, which you'll see here in a second, can show trends in SOL data performance at a point in time or over a content area. So VVAS is also a beneficial tool for our educators. It can be used to monitor the growth of all students, like Ms. Smith was saying, and we can continue to make those informed and data-driven decisions on how to support and enrich our students. VVAS also aligns with ACPS's commitment to collaborative partnerships with families, so we continue to have those consistent conversations, celebrating those successes, identifying areas for improvement, and really monitoring a plan for growth. So I do want to explain how VVAS works. There are, like Ms. Smith said, several elements to a student's data story. As you can see on this flow map here, it starts with a year of instruction that takes place for our students. Those students are then given standardized assessments, and the VDOE data department then sends that information over to EVAS, which is the parent platform there. And EVAS takes several weeks to analyze and build the reports, and then that information is available on VVAS. I do want to note that this is a process that happens one time a year. And so the current data that's available for parents and educators right now is SOL tests up to the spring of 2022 and our K-3 PALS. There's no current year data on there yet. So the VDOE is asking that student assessment summary reports be distributed in all divisions in the state of Virginia for grades 4 through 12. And like we've explained, this is to help identify those strengths and weaknesses over time, and how their student scores compares to others who took the same test in the state. So if students did not attend a Virginia public school last year, if they didn't take any SOLs while they were in Virginia schools, if they changed divisions, or they enrolled after the data was collected, then they will not have a student assessment summary available to them. We have provided resources on our website. There are additional resources for parents and families also on the VDOE website to support the understanding of the student assessment summaries. And Ms. Smith is going to walk you through how we distributed those reports and talk about our next steps.
So on June 2nd, a lot happened in the division. Paper copies were sent home with students and their report cards so that parents could see the actual breakdown of the report and what it offers. Also, we opened up the reports to be uploaded into PowerSchool, so through the parent portal, just as a parent can access grades and information through the parent portal, they can also access the student summary report that's given out by EVAS. Okay. And then our next steps within the division, right now we're kind of in practice mode because just like Ms. Cecil said, we only have data up to spring 2022. So as we're working through new data for this year, it's not going to be in the system for principals and teachers to be able to look at. So right now we're in the professional development stage. At the division level, getting very familiar with the platform, and we have asked principals this summer, they have access to the platform to start seeing what types of reports they can generate, how they can cluster students together, to see where strengths and weaknesses are, to get a feel for the program. Once we get more information from the state through the EVAS parent site, I guess you could say. In North Carolina, there are 3 of us in the division, myself, Ms. Cecil, and Ms. Ruth Matheny, who will be going to VIVAS University for 3 days. I know you're so sad you're going to be missing that. 3 days, we're going to go in depth with this so that we can bring it back. And we're looking for specifics that will come out of that will tell us how we will need to roll this out with principals, with teachers, as well as parents, about what the platform is going to be able to be utilized throughout the year and how often it will be updated. Right now, it's just a one time of year, but we don't know if additional data like growth assessments or any other diagnostics or student performance measures are going to be added to it. So we want to get that information. Our training does not take place until September, so hopefully by October we'll be able to give you another update of where we are with VIVAS. And at this time, we'll be available to answer any questions. I will have to say that I was excited to hear Ms. Saunders looked at that wonderful video about VIVAS, so she can tell you a lot of details as well from that if you ever get a chance to talk to her. But any questions, we'll be glad to answer.
Have any questions?
Oh, yes.
Mr. Russ?
Where do I start? So we're using the system to replace what? Or what are we trying to get from the system?
Right now, when you look at SOL data, let's think of the school quality profile sheet. It's all in isolation. You look at 1 year in itself, and you can't cluster and compare 1 year to another year with a group of students. That's what this program will allow you to. It'll allow you to manipulate and group students from 1 year to the next to see how performance has changed, growth or lack of growth that might have existed. We don't have a system like that unless we create it on our own, through our own methods, to compare data and have it all housed in one place to do those types of quick comparisons.
Right, but we do have a way to access this data.
We do have a way to access
I know,
the
because
data.
I've sat here and had numbers given to me. I've seen reports. We compare students from last year to this year and how they're progressing.
But we create a lot of that here in this building.
Right. And now when you're talking about North Carolina, South Carolina, Ohio, what data are we entering into this?
SOL right now and PALS data.
All right.
So we're not being compared to another state. I'm just saying that this type of platform exists in those states.
Right. And I'm sure with the software, it is compatible to cross borders. But so we're just doing a study just to try to generate more information to help us understand what we can do to,
So this is required by all schools in the Commonwealth of Virginia by the Department of Education. So this is not something we're doing because we really have this energetic desire to, but we're required by the state to do this. We're required to send this report home by
Right.
June 30th of this year. So we send it
Right.
home on June 2nd. So I think it will be good data for us, but this is a requirement from the Department of Education that we do this.
And if I could add too, one of the big components of this is the public-facing piece, so that parents, families, they have access to not just the current year data, but longitudinal data for their students. So for myself, I have a fifth grader next year. This is a system I'll be able to log into and really see over time how her
Right.
performance is compared to previous years, but then also to her peers across the state. That's really, I feel as though that was one of the big pushes for this
Yeah.
program, that transparency component and allowing families greater access to that data.
yeah, I definitely can see the transparency part of it, and that's protecting our information being shared so broad. You know, I'm a little bit nervous, especially when they're saying we have to use it. Makes me nervous. So, Ms. Cecil, I trust you. Learn everything you can. And no, I am seriously concerned about the data going into the system that's being shared throughout the state. Not only will we be able to see the progress of students, we're also going to see progress of individual teachers, divisions, and that may affect things coming down the pike. And that's something I'd really be concerned about sharing with everybody.
This is
No
good
movement.
information that we can take when we go to the
Yeah,
training as far
yeah,
as.
and sharing it, you know, I'm all for the advancement of it, but if they're out to zero in on something, I don't want that evidence to be used against us, and, you know, that's what I'm afraid of.
And if it's the board pleasure, we can come back. Obviously, we have the university that our friends are attending over the summer, but being able to give those periodic updates and actually showing the board what that platform looks like, how that data is going in. We're kind of in the initial stages, I think, ourselves of fully understanding what all that looks like. But if that would be the pleasure of the board, I know we'd be happy to come back and provide those updates.
I think I would like some update. I do see the advantage of having the historical, just their SOL scores, you know, how they're doing, because sometimes you forget from year to year. And you may know this already, but, you know, are they going to have more delineated reports to where parents can say, okay, my child needs to work on this in writing 3 years ago, and how did they do, you know, over time with that type of detail as opposed to just a score?
At this time, that does not exist. It's just simply the student summary report, but we're hoping we'll get more details as they start fleshing this out between now and, we go in September and they finish the training in October, so that's when we're hoping we have some.
Valuable for parents and teachers. Ms. Berg, you had a question?
Yes, I see the advantages of having this. My only concern is how are our children going to be put in the system? Are we going to have their names in there? Other information? Is the state going to be selling our data? I have all those concerns.
Everything is uploaded through the system. We have to upload it ourselves. I think Kevin Harrison works through that as our SIS manager, and he sends it directly to them to be put into the system. As
But
far
are
as the
we putting,
security
like,
methods.
you know,
and report-
Susie Jones, or are we putting their student ID numbers instead?
Looking at the summary reports, it has their names listed on it, because
Yes.
that's how we knew who to give which reports to, so it does have that detailed information.
So we
in
have to
it.
load it by family and students so
Yeah.
parents can access it. And when the letters go home with the data in June, on June 2nd, we sent it home, but it was by student, and it went to those families by student.
So not everybody has access to everybody's data.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious about, you know, the state having all our students' data and selling our
Yeah.
data, and
Don't they already have it?
They already have it.
Yeah, they already
do.
have
That's
it.
not
well, I don't want
anything
to
new.
offer them any more.
I think that we already currently have reports that the state is doing along these lines. It's just a different report. It doesn't have the
Yes, ma'am.
historical piece to it. Is that correct?
Mhm. And the analytic and clustering capabilities that this platform offers, mainly for principals and teachers.
That's right.
Yeah, Madam, sorry. I think the information's already out there. That's why we get those report card type things. I'm using the word here. So
Correct.
concerns are valid, but it's out there already. Been there for a minute.
Ms. Saunders?
Well, as a parent who
had a student who struggled in SOLs, I think this is a great tool, especially for, you know, I could have looked back to say, okay, he's definitely progressed some, but he still needs help. And that, as a teacher, it's got to be a great tool. So, you know, I actually did watch the video. So I did see where that progression is going to be a great tool and a great asset. So, you know, with information, our kids are all over the internet as it is. So they have sold their soul to the devil a long time ago when they got on TikTok or whatever it was. So.
Well, my kids aren't allowed on TikTok, and I don't think they sold their soul to the devil yet.
Anyone else? Ms. Justice?
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Thank you so much, ladies, for what you've done. I understand that this has been mandated from the state level. So does it have a cost associated with it?
No cost that we are aware of. No, ma'am.
Wonderful. That sounds
Above my
good,
pay
sort of. And then the other question is, I think I heard you saying that you guys have had to produce reports that gave us this information before. So will this reduce your workload a little, possibly?
I think so.
That's very good.
I think so.
Lower workload can go to students. That's great.
I think it'll help principals much
Principals,
more.
good. And as a parent who used that little icon on my phone a lot for my student last year, that sounds very convenient to me, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Ms.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies.
We are looking at 8.03.
Yes, ma'am. One more for me. Apologies to the board there. This one is actually for me. We received our report card, you might say, our fiscal year 2021 Special Education Performance Report from the state. There's a number of indicators, 14 in fact, that we report on each and every year that relate to our progress with students with disabilities in particular areas identified by the state of Virginia and the federal government. A couple of quick notes for the performance report, which is in board docs. The graduation and dropout rate, so indicator 1 and 2, is based on 2020-2021 data. That's 2 years behind. Everything else is based on 2021-2022 data, so that's only 1 year behind for all the other indicators there. This was a favorable comparison to last year's data, so we held strong in a lot of areas. We saw some growth in some areas, and granted, we did have a little bit of bump from certain requirements, certain waivers that were under COVID. We actually didn't see the drop-off that I expected with that, so I was very, very pleased with those components of the data. I couldn't help myself, also did a little scouring of other reports from other divisions in our area. We had a very favorable comparison to our partner divisions, and in certain categories far exceeded what their performance levels were. There was no bragging about that, but it's always good to see that we're doing well with our partner divisions here in the area. We're fully compliant with all of our discipline and eligibility processes. There's no disproportionality identified within our identification of students with disabilities. Those are 3 key areas that we try to maintain 100% compliance in, and we were there again for this report. I did want to highlight 2 components that we are particularly strong about. Our inclusion in pre-K settings remains strong. So we're exceeding benchmarks, exceeding state expectations for having our students in general curriculum with their peers throughout the day. And our parent involvement remains very, very strong. That's one indicator we're very proud of here in Amherst. We continually exceed that threshold established by the state and did so again on this report. Obviously, with report cards, there's always those moments to be able to reflect and look for areas to improve. Even though we exceeded benchmarks in most of those areas when it comes to our students' participation and performance in SOLs, we have room to grow and we want to continue to work hard to ensure that we are providing those students access to content, spiraling those concepts and preparing them for those assessments they're taking throughout the year. Again, another point of reflection for us in our pre-K programs, we had fantastic response rate and the ability to really see how they're coming in and where we're able to get them from a growth standpoint. But we were just below or just meeting a lot of those thresholds, and that's where we want to be exceeding as much as possible. We want to make sure our students are prepared to take that next step into kindergarten and beyond. So certainly some areas for growth with us within that program, but all in all, very pleased with our report card, going home and hanging on the refrigerator and gloat about it a little bit. But be happy to answer any questions the board might have for me this evening.
Any questions, board? I have a quick one.
Yes, ma'am, please.
I want to say that I'm happy to know that we are doing well compared to our neighboring divisions,
Yes, ma'am.
and that even doing well compared to last year.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have, I know we have the ability, but do we ever take time to look at this longitudinally to see if we are improving over time?
We do, and actually these reports are available going back about 10 to 12 years on the VDOE website, so we kind of have that view. There, they actually maintain, we don't get it in a separate document, but there's a different matrix that they use that relates around compliance. And it actually follows some of the VTSS models and color diagrams, things like that. That's something that they use to really look at progress over time. It's not something they publicly release, but something we have access to as well. But having that on the VDOE website helps quite a bit to see where we've come from and where we are.
You have access to that, not the public?
Actually, that is publicly available
Oh, it is?
all the way
Okay.
back. Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
And one quick note I failed to mention on our graduation rate, that does not include students that graduate with an applied studies diploma. So those that qualify for that as individuals with an IEP, they are still graduates for us. It's still a diploma recognized in the state of Virginia, but they do not get calculated in that particular rate. So our graduation rate, students that got a diploma from us, exceeds the state benchmark, but they don't include it in this particular calculation. But again, we want to exceed it even with that exception. Again, I'd be happy to take any questions. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Madam Chair, Vice Chair. Mr. Neighbors, the report you mentioned that shows the longitudinal comparisons for our district, is it possible for you to send a link to the board members with
And
that?
it's actually something I pull down and aggregate myself, but I can do that for you and give you all access to that. It's okay.
At 9.01, Human Resources.
So Human Resources, Mr. Gallagher.
All right, thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, I'd be remiss if I didn't start just by saying great job, Mr. Neighbors. And I know all what goes into those percentages and scores on that report. And not only you, Mr. Neighbors, but the entire staff and faculty that pours out a lot to get there with the students that we are serving. So excellent job there. So tonight I have a few items for you. The first is our vacancy memo for this evening, for this month. And you can take a look at that and see how that has changed. Has increased a little bit since last month. We're about, compared to last year at this time, we have about 3 or 4 less vacancies, but this does represent what we typically have, which is somewhat of a second wave after spring break of different people who end up either moving out of the area or going somewhere and taking different positions. But we are in pretty good shape right now. But you can take a look at that and see where we have positions for a lot of those. What I'm grateful for is that we have interviews set up and hopefully have great candidates, especially in English, where you can see we have a number of candidates. English is one of those areas where there are few candidates out there, but we have 3 strong candidates that we'll be interviewing early next week, so that looks promising. Down under classified, as it stands, bus drivers is always my primary area of concern, so I know that we're also looking to kind of increase what we are, reimbursing them next year a little bit more than typical, but we still have that gap, and we have a training coming up soon with 1 or 2 individuals, but that's still an area that's a big need. So, but as you reflect, I'll be happy to answer any questions regarding the vacancy report.
Board, have any questions? Okay, I see none. Thank you, Mr. Gallagher.
Yeah, you're very welcome. The next item I have is reflections of our exit survey. As you're aware, anybody that leaves is sent our employee exit survey. This is for teachers only. That's kind of what the state requires, and they send us the survey that we typically use is based on their model. And I like to present each year, typically in June, the summary reflections on what those individuals have reported back to us. And each year it is also used to kind of break down that data and kind of figure out where we can get better, what's strong, but also where we can get better. And we can break that down also, by school and talk about that information with individuals directly. This information looks very similar in nature to last year's as far as the reasons for some of the departures, whether that be for retirement or personal family considerations or some of the supplemental issues that you can see with student discipline, climate support, those type of things. Salary is always on there. The one thing that we want to do is try to increase participation in this survey. We do want to keep it anonymous so that people will share their information. But as you can see, at the time that this data was captured, we had 41 individuals that the data was sent to and 16 respondents. So if I have a 25% marked in one area, that's 4 individuals who indicated that. It's impactful, it's important, it's not to be dismissed. It's just that I would like to have a broader data set to really know how we're doing. So we've talked a little bit in senior staff and with Dr. Wells about maybe restructuring how we provide opportunities for people to respond, maybe setting up some structured opportunities for them to sit down and complete the survey, even if anonymously, before leaving, trying to somehow increase that response because we want to have that. But I'll take questions about any of that data.
Board, have any questions or comments? Ms. Liggett?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. Just observation, really, not trying to throw anybody anywhere. But when we speak of lack of support, 31%. Lack of support from parents and community. Did they expand a little bit that to you, G?
They may have
I'm just trying
opportunity.
to understand that a little bit.
Some may expand in the survey by providing a summary comment, so you can pick up on what that means to them, whether what they felt about the climate or the support they received from either administration or the community or whatever that might be. So we do have opportunities to. I can't necessarily pinpoint who said what, but I can look and break it down a little bit and identify what the reasons behind that are, if they provide it. They're not required to provide that. So that's a supplemental opportunity that they do have and does give us some additional data.
Yeah, well, I think it's worldwide when you send out a survey like that, they're going to say that. But I guess I was just trying, when I looked at this the other night, I was just trying to think, just a comment. I think we, the board, and we, the administration, I think we try. We really try to give as much support as we can. And I'm not there day to day. But I was just trying to think, going into a new season in August, what is it that is lacking in support? Now, for new teachers, you said this is teachers.
These are exiting teachers
Okay,
over the course of the school year.
I'll speak about that then. Now, brand new teachers, I remember they have mentors.
For 2 years, correct.
For 2 years. In that 2-year period, if there's a stress moment or a frustration moment or whatever moment, do you feel, or somebody feel, that they are going to their mentors for, I'm using that word, support? Are they getting support, you think, from mentor teachers?
I think we have a fantastic mentor program, and they are connecting with their early career teachers and those teachers that are new to Amherst County, and the data does reflect that because we survey mentors, mentees, principals about the mentor program. So that's something I feel really strongly about. We also do professional development with all of our principals to work on how to make sure we are supporting not only our new early career teachers, but all of our teachers to make sure that we can retain them so we're not looking to have to recruit and go find new individuals, how to make sure we're touching base, recognizing what the needs are, communicating effectively, and making sure we're supporting individuals properly. Is it a tough job? Are there times when that can be difficult on early career teachers? It is, but there is a good bit of support there, not only with the formal mentor program, but other teammates around them in the departments and throughout the school, and from central office, quite honestly, because a lot of supports that you see, here and throughout our offices are pushed out through the schools. They're direct support, so that support is also out in the schools, and I think people here are also accessible. So that's one thing that I think is, in my opinion, special about the division is people can access and communicate with people to get support. So
I agree. But I just had to look at that and just question, and I'm talking about myself as well, what
Yes,
is it
ma'am.
that we're missing here?
Well, so as I said before, I don't want to dismiss it because every single person's voice matters, It is a very small sample size and a very small N, and there are a lot of people out there who have not given their perspective, and I want to increase that
Right.
because I think there is a lot of positive out there, and I don't want to dismiss, the ones that are critical or information that shows us how to get better. I just don't think it's reflective of a majority or even a significant portion. It's hard to say that it's a percentage of the small response
Yeah,
rate.
16 out of 41, I agree.
And so, but as you look back and reflect through that, you want to take that seriously and understand when you review and see what those concerns were. Those are points of discussion. So when we do have professional development, so we're connecting individually with schools and principals, we can talk about how do we make sure that that's not the way people are feeling, while they're in the buildings.
Well, I think you and I, we were going the same direction. And there,
Yes, ma'am.
there are a lot of things that can't be changed, really. I mean, some things are just as they are. But I was just thinking last night when I was looking at this, we tried to have, I did not get out this time to the lunch, to deliver the lunch. I was giving exams, but
Yes,
we do
ma'am.
that. That's one thing that we
Yes,
try
ma'am.
to be,
ma'am.
incentives. I don't know if these are incentives or what do we call them, appreciation.
Mhm.
What are some other things we do? On Education Week, we have a lot of
Right.
things we do.
And we had the tailgates in the fall.
Yeah, I'm
to
just
get
talking, yeah, we
people-
try, I think we try. So I don't know if there's something, there's a missing piece here to do better or not.
Well, I will tell you, this
I'm
is
talking
one
about
piece of
everybody.
information. So we really try to survey and find and get feedback in a lot of areas. This is one piece, and we use all of it in our efforts to plan, over the course of the year on how we're going to continue to improve, right? And we may do things well. We're always looking to get better. And on the flip side, having looked at the vacancy report, I think we do a good job in this area of supporting our teachers. So we do have vacancies. So people that are watching, if you're looking to make a change, come show up in Amherst. This is the place to be. So it is a good place to be.
Well, I'm always going to say that. I'm positive with that, but
Yeah.
at the same time, going into a new school season, when you're having your meetings, your orientations, your everything,
Yes, ma'am.
if there's something that I said we because I live in the county and support it, that we're missing, that someone could give us an idea of what is it that we can do to support you more within reason.
Yeah. Well, you're going to make me speak longer than my 10 minutes and
No,
get in
no, I'm
trouble with my
almost finished.
colleagues.
But no, I'm doing, but
we-
you know
we
what?
get-
No, I'm doing this now, so
Yes,
when
ma'am.
she asked me for my, I think somebody said, do this while you have the chance. And then my last thing is,
Yeah.
Dr. Wells is already trying to look at, trying to look at discipline and behavior. We are looking at that as strongly as we can. And
Yes,
I
ma'am.
realize that that can be a problem,
Yes,
no
ma'am.
doubt about it. But it's not just Amherst, so I want to throw that out there. But I believe that we're in a direction that we're trying to go in a direction
Yes, ma'am.
of looking at that to help, because classroom discipline, that would make a teacher, including myself, just rethink what I'm doing.
And so we hear that, and we actually refocus our new teacher orientation. So next year, that's going to be a more prominent focus and very much planned and organized and evidence-based professional development in that area with our new teachers and with everybody. But so we survey those individuals who do come into us newly as well as those that are leaving, and so we get some of that feedback. So you mentioned the orientation, and we always want to try to make sure that we're refining that as well to give everybody what they need. But I appreciate your comments.
Yeah, well, my last comment, I'm through, is that we know that people change jobs. I just want to throw that out. Everybody has the option to change jobs, but we just want to say that if you're here and we can help to keep you here, diamond rings or what have you, we do the best we can. But, these three things that I mentioned here, just want to look at them from every standpoint if possible, just to
Yes,
make
ma'am.
everybody happy. Show up, Amherst. We're going to try to show up to knock these numbers down here a little bit. All right, G, I'm
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for all that. Yes, ma'am.
I just had one quick question. Do we know when they hand in these reports, do we know what school that they were leaving?
I can look and find that data. I don't publicize that for the small n, but, because it is a small number, but I can figure out which school. That helps me reflect with individual buildings about the, different comments that were made or which ones had the different, they chose those reasons upon leaving, because that helps us get better individually as well.
All right, well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Madam Vice Chair?
Yes, Ms. Justice?
Do we have a survey that we gave our teachers who were staying at the same time that asked similar questions that we might be able to compare?
I do not have a survey that just goes out to everybody who remains specific to what keeps you here, if that's what you're alluding to, or anything like that.
Things you like.
Right, or things that could change even there.
Yeah,
So no,
definitely.
there's nothing. I mean, other than the open lines of communication, hopefully that are there. There's no survey to that effect.
Because that might be something that in the future might be a help if you have 25% of your exiting teachers that respond with this, but maybe you have 25% of your teachers who are staying that respond. If you're seeing a consistency of what is impacting people leaving with those that are staying, it can give a little bit more of a correlation as well.
So, Ms. Justice,
Yes,
I
sir.
did a climate survey this year through Hanover to help me guide into the comprehensive plan for the next 6 years. So this year we do have some similar data. It's not the same questions, but there are things we can pull upon. We had about 200 staff respond. Not all teachers, just staff in general. But we'll be getting that data from Hanover here in the next month or so, and that'll give us something we can do some correlation, a little bit of correlation
I
there.
saw that when you sent it out, yeah.
Thank you.
I'm going to wrap up this one section by just saying that, we are not in a worse place with people exiting than in past years, so we're doing pretty good there. They tend to happen around this time frame, so you see more of that on the board report, but it's not exceptionally high. We have quite a few folks that we have hired. I do feel like we're rocking it in that category, but then also we have new ones come open. So I'm never content until we have everything filled. So again, I'll always push out to say, if anybody's out there, you do want to come here because it's an amazing place. So show up Amherst, and I'll end with that comment. I have one other memo you don't have this one, I think, on board docs, but you have in front of you. Last year in September, this actually the beginning of this current year, you all were able to approve emergency paid sick leave for COVID-19 that provided all employees 5 days as necessary if they were actually test positive for COVID. They could utilize that so it wouldn't impact their sick leave. Just wanted to remind you all that is expired. Well, as of June 30th, that provision expires. I don't see a need to try to propose carrying that over at this point in time regarding where we are. Obviously, we go into next school year, for some reason, something comes back around, numbers begin to increase, then we may always want to respond and consider. But at this time, I don't believe there's a reason to try to propose maintaining that emergency paid sick leave.
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
Wouldn't it be easier just to keep this in place and then have something happen than have to rush around and try to?
Well,
Help
this
out the
expires
teachers?
this expires at the end of the school year, as it's drafted. So it would require a newly developed and proposed and approved practice for the next school year. And as we did this one, as you can see, it was in September. We didn't just carry that over, automatically the previous year, because actually around this time we didn't feel the need to do so, and the board agreed that there was not a need to put that in place. And when we did respond, this wasn't too terribly difficult to put together, and it was retroactive. So anybody that had already experienced, being out for that reason was able to be covered, even if it was after this was put into place.
So if it's the board purview, I mean, obviously, if you want to continue it as a board, we can bring it to you in July if you'd like to. But the current one does expire June 30 as written. So we'd have to develop and pass another one stating for the dates that would take place. Again, that's up to the board. If you'd like us to present something to you along those lines, we can.
Well, we could also bring the data that shows the infrequency, if you would, of use for quite a while.
Yeah,
So
we've had very few people utilize it since the fall, into the year.
But the ones that did, I'm sure, appreciated it.
100%. I'm very grateful and thankful that we had it. I was a proponent of putting this into place, by the way, and advocating for that, and I felt like that's what our employees needed. So don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to take anything away. I think we just need to be responsive, and if a need arises again, I know you all would be very good about putting that back into place and making it retroactive.
Well, some data might be good for us to look at then.
Sure.
We
can bring
have
that
for
back
you
in July.
July meeting.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And that's all I have.
Gallagher? Dr. Wells.
All right, next we have superintendent matters. So first, generally, just 30,000 foot view with SOLs. We see we're trending in a fairly positive direction. We have some pockets that we're identifying. We don't have all the growth data and all the other data back from, we have our projections, but we don't have it from the state. We have our raw data. Raw data is looking good overall. So as we get more of that in, we'll be sharing it with you once we get it. But I'll just say overall, things are trending positively, and in some schools very much higher than they were in many categories last year. So just I don't want to say too much and upset the cart here a little bit, but I feel overall we're in a better place, and I think and some projections are higher than we anticipated being. So, but we'll have more data for you as we get it, and we can disaggregate it and get that to you. And obviously, looking at our gap groups and things of that nature, we'll have that information for you once we get it all broken down. Budget update. The state has yet to pass anything beyond the skinny budget. Again, we know the primaries are June 20th, so I would anticipate if anything's going to happen, it'll be after the June 20th primaries. And so if it does happen, we will update our projections. If it doesn't happen, we live off the skinny budget and survive with what we have.
It's skinny.
It is skinny. So we're, I would love it to be the governor's proposed or higher with the Senate, but I really think until they get through that primary, you're going to see very little action the next 2 weeks on it, but maybe after the primary, you'll see some movement, and then we'll have more information. But we'll go, as soon as I know more, I'll share it with you, but right now we just don't have any updated information other than a new calc tool. Senior class scholarships. And I was hoping Justin would be here tonight because I was going to really recommend he do an article on this. I'm still going to call him about it. But, we had over $3 million worth of scholarships financially given to our seniors this year. That is something that has been overlooked. And I don't know why. We've said it and we've posted it. But, you figured $3 million worth of scholarships financially. That's a pretty substantial number for our students here in Amherst County. So I just want to highlight that. Thank all of our students, all our seniors for the hard work they've done to get there. But that's a pretty good accomplishment to have that much financial aid and scholarship given to your graduates. I think around 75 to 80 students earned the $3 million in that. And I'm sure there's others. I know there's one other because her daughter didn't complete the form. I won't say any names. But we know there's some others out there as well, and that's just the ones we know of. So it's higher than that, obviously, but it's just great things about our students and the education they're getting here that they can get that much financial aid in colleges across the state, not just the state, but across the country. So we do appreciate that and thank them for all their hard work. Graduation. I felt graduation went very well. We had our one incident that made ESPN's top 10 list. But other than that, it was a good evening, and the students did very well. And I appreciate all the work they've done to get to where they were. And I thank Mr. Crawford and his team for all the work they did in preparing the students and getting us there and having a good night. That student was dealt with, and we moved on. But it was a great evening, so I just appreciate you being there and your support and being there for our students, not only during graduation, but during their whole career, as long as you've been on the board, so thank you for that. One other thing is just, this is about 1 year since we've come together, and you've put me in this position, so I thank you for the support. Thank you. I appreciate the support and the trust you've placed in me to serve in this position, and I'm looking forward to many more years, hopefully, of doing this and supporting and serving Amherst County. So again, thank you for that. And we're about at the 1 year mark. So thank you very much. Unless you have any questions, that's all I have.
Do I have questions for Dr. Wells? Okay, well, we want to say thank you for a wonderful year. We appreciate you and everything that you have done and everything that you're doing. Board members, we are down to committee reports as well as individual items from board members. I guess we can combine those. So Mrs. Saunders, we'll start with you.
Guess what you get for being on the end?
I know. The only bad thing I get on the end, though, is this air conditioning. So I was glad, Brittany, that you turned that up a little bit. I wanted to thank the staff, and especially Mr. Crawford and his staff. Graduation I thought was great, but of course, I'm a little biased. We have a great group of students. They're so talented. I hate when they leave early because we don't really get to give them a shout out as what they deserve. But I do want to shout out my buddy Craig Maddox and Shannon Presnell for their CTE work. That is a passion for them, and we are so lucky to have them. And thank you for putting all the hard work into it. Today, you guys probably don't know, but the EDA and CVCC are paying to have a CTE coach, and we finally hired one, and she came to meet with us, and Craig showed her around the high school. I think it's going to be a really great addition to what we already have in the Future Center. So that's all I have.
Saunders, that's wonderful news. Mr. Arasi.
Yes, we made it through another year. You know, good things coming. I know there was a lot of work put into this year and already started for next year. I mean, it never stops, and I get that, and I'm glad we have the team we have here, the board that we have here. You know, I love working with everybody here, and I'm excited to see the community coming out, and I know it didn't represent it well in that little exit interview, but I've seen it. I've seen the community come out. I was at the tailgates, at the ball games. I see the community coming up, and you know, I don't have last year's exit data to compare it to, but I'm pretty sure it was probably better than it was last year. I think we're in a better place this year to move even further forward. I think we're striving for perfection and realizing it's a moving target, but everybody here seems to be moving in the right direction. So I'm real happy where we're sitting now. I wish Richmond would help us out and let us move forward too. I'm a little upset that we're being to the point of equity inclusion, I guess. I don't know how they think it's all right to you know, reward the ones that may not be as responsible, and you know, we struggle to do what we do, and the community comes together, and we will. We're not going to let this addition go away. It's going to happen. I don't know how it's going to happen yet, but I don't think the community's going to let it slide. You know, it's been in the works for years. That's why we made the choices we did. That's why our Board of Supervisors made the choices they did, you know, and it put us in a good place, and for us to be penalized for it is not right. And I don't think we're going to sit back and let it slide. So hope Amherst shows up again, which I think they will. And, you know, the students tonight, the band students that all got recognized tonight, you know, it's good to see them. It was tough being in the band, I know, but it's great to see the rewards. And believe me, it was not an easy feat to get there. You're competing against students all across the state. It's not easy to get there. It's not easy to stand out. There's a lot of trumpets there, and everybody's blowing their horn. So to stand out, it is an accomplishment. So thank you for those students, and, you know, don't be so hard on the band students. It's a good job. That's all I have.
Rossi. Mrs. Justice?
Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. Board of Governors, school met. I was on vacation and having a good time, but they did great. I was very proud of our Board of Governors students from Amherst, and on graduation night, just so thankful for the enthusiasm, the parents, all the help, the great speakers, our seniors that spoke, and I just can't help but really grieve for Huguenot in Richmond, and just praying for them, and very thankful I was here in Amherst. Growing up in school, the highlight music always added so much to the school environment. And rarely did the musicians get the proper due that they should have gotten from the rest of the student body. But at every sporting event, at every assembly, it was those band students, it was those choir students that really created atmosphere. And we would have missed it. So tonight, it just gave me such a thrill to see how well all our musicians did, and in the competitions. And I remember also, as a high school choir person, that oftentimes my opportunity to get outside of my region was always through choir. And so when I see them going to King's Dominion and participating, I just think of how much their world has opened up because of those opportunities. And I want to especially congratulate Miss Laura Ashton, who is playing at Carnegie Hall. That's phenomenal. And to me, that's just a sample of the quality that is in Amherst and is lifted up by our teachers and our staff and our community. And I'm just really thankful to be here in Amherst.
Ms. Berg.
Yes, I wanted to say congratulations to our JVG Outstanding Specialist. Hope I got that right. Also, our yearbook staff, Ashton and Dylan. You know, great job. So proud. And also our band members. I wasn't in band, but my son was. He played the tuba, and I know how hard it is for those kids. So congratulations to them for putting all the hard work forward and putting Amherst on the map in our band also. It also was good to hear about our summer programs and our pre-K. Congratulations to our new principal at Central Elementary. And $3 million in scholarships. That says a lot for Amherst and all our students and all the hard work they put in. And also to our teachers that are giving our students the opportunity to go on to college, get those scholarships, qualify for everything. There's a lot of work that gets put into that. Also graduation, great job. I had a blast. I thought it was fun. So proud of everybody. And also our chorus. They were phenomenal. Excellent. I was blown away by the chorus during graduation. They did a great job. And also, I wanted to thank Dr. Wells. We are so lucky to have you, and it's an honor and privilege to be underneath you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fliggin.
Okay, first I'll do my Laurel report. I did attend the Laurel graduation at the end of May. There were two graduates, one from the city of Lynchburg and one from Bedford County. Dr. Edwards gave out the diplomas for both because the Bedford County superintendent was away. So once again, another great year at Laurel. For the VSBA, a couple of things. I think all board members received the legislative positions so that we don't run into a mishap in November. I ask that you take some time between now and maybe October to look at those and to get with me if there's something that you are not in agreement with, or so when it's time to vote on them, everybody has them now and we can look at that. It's not a today thing, but as the coming months. The second thing for the VSBA was that I did attend the law conference on last Friday, probably one of the best ones yet. Just to give you a couple of highlights. I spoke to Dr. Wells. Some of these things that were talked about was the behavioral threat assessment, and we are very well with that here in Amherst County. We have a crisis team. We have a threat assessment team, am I right?
Yes, ma'am.
We're in order with that, but that's a biggie on the market right now with all of the unsafetyness going on. So I really received a great deal of information, and there are handouts available that I will bring to you if you want them, but they're online. And just a good thing. One, just a quote that I heard that was interesting. It says that you can't manage what you can't measure. I had not heard that myself, but that's saying that you don't know how safe your schools are until you have this assessment going on, which we thankful that we have here at Amherst, because there are a lot of things going on. Just like what happened in Richmond or anywhere else, we need to be prepared. I feel that we are here. And then another title was, they talked about some of the things that Mr. Neighbors had talked about, special ed and new things coming up with IEPs, which we're once again excited here in Amherst that we have people on top of that, constant giving us information like they gave us tonight. Because special ed, once again, is a huge topic. And a quote from that, it says, if a student is making progress, change something. It's interesting, right? It's saying that you're making too much progress or you're not making enough progress, then you need to really look. These IEPs, in other words, they say you just really need to be on top of that. So I won't go too deep into that. And then the final was just recap of all of the legislation that's going on, all the bills that's presented. We get that from J.T. Kessler at least every day or every week. And so if you have any issues with anything he's saying, you can either email him or email me, and I'll email him. So I feel that we're much caught up. Those are my two things like that. Once again, I want to congratulate everybody. The yearbook, that's my thing right there. Next to the parking ticket for football, this is my life right here. So Ms. Burley knows that we appreciate all the kind things that are given to us. I did want, Madam Chair, just throw out one other thing for thought. The governance, the norms, we need to think about getting back to that whenever possible. We've been out there a few months. So maybe you and the chair could let us know, and the superintendent, when we're going to try to get back to that. I'm just trying to clean stuff out of my closet. And so we'd like to look at that. And then lastly, oh my goodness, I got a book here. I'm almost through. Yes, I'm through. Graduation was great. And I'm just put a couple things on my agenda to be thinking about as we look forward to a new year, whoever the board may be. Discipline for sure, be major. Retention, not you, G, just retention. And then mental health, and that comes into both of those. We really need to not put that on the back burner. And when I say mental health, I'm talking about for everyone, from the littlest to the oldest, the youngest to the whole thing. Because I think that in this day and time, with every discipline, that is affecting a lot of things. And so that's why I said it's important for mentorship. I didn't say we didn't have it. It's important for performance evaluation, not so much about how you're doing your job, but how you feeling. How you feeling about your job. I know that's kind of belittling people, but it's like, what can I help you do? Do you need longer lunches? Not. Do you need more time off? Not. But just what can we do? You know, what can we really, really do? So that's my report, and please look at the legislative positions, and thank you. And Dr. Wells, congratulations, you survived the storm. So we look forward to another 364 days coming up.
Yes, ma'am.
And thank you for Show Up Amherst, because that's taken off like a, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Legan. After everybody's comments, I have a hard time following them.
Go ahead, say the
I
same.
agree with all of them. I will say that thank you for the reminder about the board norms. We have talked about that, about trying to find some times. I appreciate you putting that on the calendar for the upcoming year, so that way we can, sometimes it's hard to get us all together. So that was good forethought. I also want to say how much I enjoyed going to the boys varsity baseball. Thank you, Mr. Crawford, and just the enthusiasm that was there, and the support, and they just played really, really great. Wish they could have gone on, and I hope those players that took some tumbles and things at that last game, I hope they're doing okay. But they gave it everything they had, heart and soul, so really appreciated that. Also, I wanted to just comment about the discipline and the school climate. I agree with Ms. Ligon that those needs to be some of our focuses as we move forward, as I know that we all agree on that. Be interested in looking at some of that other data to see if there's anything to support that. Want to say welcome to Ron Profit at Central, and want the staff and the teachers to know that, you know, we're hoping that they're going to have a dynamic year and that we are here to support them. Also, just the students and the teachers that came that were recognized, I just really was thrilled by them. The yearbook is just a wonderful gift. I'm going to enjoy going through that. I know that's a lot of effort, but it's just a wonderful snapshot. And Dr. Wells and your staff that came up with hashtag Amherst and Show Up Amherst, I just love the passion that that Dylan and Ashton had when they talked about that title. It meant something to them. So it wasn't just a slogan that you guys came up with at the beginning. Maybe it was to start, but it really stuck and has sunk in. So good job to everybody. Also, I'm happy about the Smart Start and the Head Start, some successes and look like good numbers there. I am really still concerned about summer school with only 87 students and only targeting 3, 4, and 5. So maybe we can talk more about, what those resources are. But I will say, on the other hand, if our scores are up, then that's a good thing too. So, but that one does concern me a little bit. So I just want to say thank you, Dr. Wells, thank you for a wonderful year. Thank you, staff, teachers that are watching, parents that have put in a lot of hours, and students. Just want to say thank you. We've had a successful year. Looking forward to another one. So,
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So I have my little reading section for closed session. So pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A1 and A2 of the Code of Virginia, it is recommended the board convene a closed meeting for the following: A1, personnel matters, and A2, student matters. The consideration for religious exemption requests will be discussed.
Board, in accordance with Section 2.2-3711, A1 and A2 of the Code of Virginia, I need a motion for the board to convene a closed meeting to discuss the following: A1, personnel matters, and A2, student matters. The consideration for religious exemption request will be discussed.
So moved.
I have a motion. I have a second.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're now in closed session.
Thank you.